Welcome to It's All About Connection, NVC with Dr. B.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Today we have a special guest, and Heather is not here. I know people really like to have Heather, but we have somebody else, a good friend of mine, Devan Kline, who's also, what is your official title at your company, Devan?
The mysterious co-founder and visionary.
For Burn Bootcamp.
That's
For
right.
those of you out in the world, I'm sure many of you know of Burn Bootcamp because my understanding is it's everywhere in the world. So yeah, and Devan and I were introduced by a mutual friend, a business guy who thought that we could help one another out. You know, Devan can help me business-wise, and I could maybe help Devan and his company with some NVC wisdom. So that's how we became friends, I guess maybe about a half a year or so ago. I've lost track now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was about a
Yeah.
half a year ago. Yeah, and it's been great so far. Just being able to, I've always believed in NVC, and since I read the book, and then when I found, I was just always searching for the steward of it because the founder is no longer with us, and you were like everywhere I could look after. We were introduced by a mutual friend. It was like Dr. Bigby was the resident expert on Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's work. So yeah, now MVC is fully baked in our organization. I had like a seed planted before we met, and then you helped me really grow that seed into a big, giant, thick tree trunk of belief in MVC. And now my team and my VP of culture, they're all connected in with you, and we keep it going. And we've really grown the business, both the culture and the revenue. There's an ROI to be had there as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm curious when you say that you're fully baked, that it's fully baked, what does that look like? Because, because a lot of
Yeah.
people, like what I find talking with business folks is like people don't really, like it takes time, to incorporate NVC. It takes a little bit of time and dedication. And yeah, that return on investment, like I don't have the time for that. I got it. So I'm just curious, how does it show up for you in your company?
Well, I think it's one thing to understand NVC, but it's another thing then to implement it. And when you implement it, you start to see those relationships grow almost immediately. And so for me, what it was, understanding observations, needs, feelings, requests, but also understanding what those things aren't, right? Judgment is not observation. Strategy
Mhm.
is not needs. Thoughts aren't feelings, and demands aren't requests. And so as soon as you understand it, that's step one, but then implementing it is step two. And so I think once you start implementing it is when it's fully baked. That means there's buy-in. That means people understand that this is a tool that can make your relationships around you better. And when our relationships around us are better, our company's better, because we don't build businesses. We build people, and the people
Mhm.
build the businesses. And
Yeah.
so that's the perspective that we had to take in order to even, open the door to NVC in the first place. And then, how it works with like dads and moms versus aunties and uncles. Morgan and Devan can say NVC all day long, but then as soon as Aunt Bigby comes in, Aunt Dr. B comes in and starts talking about it, everybody's ears perk up. And so, we're giraffing, we're Jekylling. What I have found though is people don't universally like to use those two metaphors. I think it
Mhm.
is a little in the business world. That we got to find some better words for it, I think, in the business world. So that would be the one thing that I'm trying to, so I guess not fully baked, but it's to the point where it's baking, and we're looking forward to and have seen this year the fruits of our relationships growing.
Yeah, so I'm hearing maybe that there's a awareness of the general components, and there's a beginning to kind of hold one another accountable, or just, have awareness in your meetings, or keeping it observational, just at least at that level. And that maybe some of the terminology doesn't translate so well to businesses because it maybe sounds too cutesy or something like that.
Yeah, it's I like it. I think it is cutesy on purpose because it helps you, it helps you to know when you're speaking in alignment with, your needs and your feelings and your thoughts and requests versus when you aren't. And so what we, instead of saying giraffe versus Jekyll, I know that even evolved into wolf at some point. When it's Jekyll language, we just do this. Come on, like get your head right. It's almost like get your head right rather than.
Well, I like that. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that a lot, actually. It seems like it goes very much in alignment with your business anyways, right? You know, I could see that in a gym situation, like get your head right.
For sure.
And also just for people that are maybe tuning in and have no idea what we're talking about, jackal and giraffe, and feel free to fill in with me. So it's kind of like the symbols that you see and hear a lot in NVC. Jackal is really the blame when you're doing blaming kinds of things, either inwards to yourself or outwards towards another person. That's considered jackaling. And giving empathy or just like kind of switching over to what anybody is saying as a need, like what is the need? That would be empathy, or what's my need in a circumstance? That would be self-empathy. That's considered being a giraffe because giraffes are tall, they have far vision, they have apparently they're the land mammal with the largest heart. So NVC, as corny as it might sound, is heart-based language. That's what we're attempting here, even in a business circumstance.
Definitely.
I'm curious because the reason why we even got inspired to do this podcast together was you happened to text me out of the blue about a month or so ago about a situation that happened. And I thought, well, that would be really cool for you to share about that. And, I didn't even hear too much about it other than the back and forth through our text. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'd love to. So to set the stage for this, I think, have you ever heard in a business setting, you shouldn't be the smartest person in the room, that kind of thing? To
Hmm.
me, okay, I can vibe with that. But what you should be is the best communicator in the room at all times, because empathy is the new way to build an empire. There's no longer the 1980s suit and tie vibe where it's like, if I got the suit on and I got the briefcase and I look the most important and drive the car and, have the house and have all the things. And now all of a sudden I have power, and because I have power, that means I'm successful and people will love me. It's just that way of thinking is so archaic. And it's so, I mean, look at me. I'm in a sweatshirt and a ball cap,
I
right?
love that.
Right. Running
Love it.
running one of the biggest fitness companies on the planet. And, one of my fundamental maxims is be the best communicator in the room at all times. And NVC, nonviolent communication, has really helped me to do that. And so now I feel just prepared when anybody wants to come at me or jackal me or come down on me or make judgments on me about my character and who I am. That I've learned that has nothing to do with me. And it has everything to do with what's going on in the four walls of their head. And I empathize with that. Like, I know what it's like to be down and out, to be so frustrated with yourself inwardly that has to come out in a way if you haven't learned the principles of NVC to communicate. And so to get into the story that we were talking about, I was so excited, by the way. I texted you because I was so excited. It was one of the times where it tested me because I'm pretty good at it now because I use it every day, but I was tested because not only did I get judged, I got judged on something really harshly that, like, in reality was completely false. And it was really a hard and fast judgment. And I could have went hard and fast right back, but I didn't. So I launched a podcast. It's called the Devan Kline Show. And, somebody didn't like that. They said, hey, health and fitness boy, like, stick to health and fitness. Nobody wants to hear you talk about life. No one cares to hear your interest. All we want to do is hear from you is health and fitness. When you talk about business, when you talk about money, when you talk about work or your time management, you sound like a narcissist. You sound like a pompous asshole, were the two words that they used. You sound like you're money hungry. You sound all these things that if you actually had my number and you actually had shaken my hand and you know who I am, like we know each other, that's not my driving trait. Now, I believe that building a business and managing your time against your business and making money makes you more of what you already are, right? You're either an empathetic, compassionate person or you're a pompous asshole, right? And so making money just exaggerates that. And anybody who knows me knows that one of my fundamental goals in life is to make a lot and build a lot, but to impact the communities that we serve and then give it all away, before we leave the planet. And so
So can I slow you down and just
Yeah,
reflect a little bit, if
go.
that's okay?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So this you started this podcast, and somebody gave you their opinion about it, and had a lot of thoughts about you being money hungry, and did you say pompous ass? Is that what they called you? Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
that
not
you
even sure what
sounded
that
like
means.
that you sounded like a pompous ass, and I think you're sharing like that, just wanting to like that. It was just not in alignment at all as how you know yourself, not at
N
all. And that you were tested, that it was a test, like that you stay in the game of like hearing needs of others pretty easily on the regular, but this was a moment that maybe like it threw you for a second, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it threw me to the point where, like, my heart rate immediately spiked up, right?
Hmm.
And it like, I immediately leaned in and wanted to react in a negative way. It's just natural. NVC is counterintuitive, right? We
Hmm.
wanna we
Totally
wanna
true.
we wanna naturally just, go back at somebody that comes at us because we wanna defend ourselves, but I had to realize that this person is dealing with some stuff, and if I reacted in a negative way, I'm not helping them or helping me. It's a lose-lose. So instead of reacting, I listened to you and I said, it sounds like you're frustrated. And I want to know what needs that you have that aren't being met. And that just opened up a dialogue that I wouldn't have had opened up otherwise without that really strategic question. And so that started us into a observations, needs, feelings, thoughts conversation. And it was a beautiful conversation, to be honest with you. And it didn't go how I expected it to go. It ended up being a win-win for both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just that little change of how you proceeded in that moment. Like I heard you say, like you literally had like a pulling forward. You wanted to react, you wanted to like say all these things back, like your heart was beating and stuff. And then you remembered, wait a second, there's something else happening here. There's something else. If I can lean into that, and just the question of like or taking you know throwing out a possible feeling. I'm hearing maybe you're really frustrated, and maybe there's some needs going on here. I'm curious about what those are. Like just pivoting in that moment, you said it just opened up a whole different level of dialogue, and I'm guessing you ended with some kind of connection with the dude.
Well, like you say in your book, My Link to Mildred, like that dance floor was opened up, right? It was an invitation onto the dance floor. And if anybody hasn't read Dr. B's book, please read it because it's going to help you really understand this stuff. Um, it's my go-to. The whatever page, I forget what page it is, but I have it marked where the dance floor, where it shows the dance floor graphic,
Mhm,
and I read some words around it just whenever I need a reminder. And it's just that reminder that that question to me is like, will you come to the dance with me? Like, will you come and can we shuffle together and can we work out our problem in a way where by the end of it, you're not
mhm,
making demands of one another, but we both have a request of one another that we both can fulfill, and it's not going to take a lot of energy or effort away from what you're focused on. It's just a little bit, one little request. Hey, can we pick up the phone and have a conversation next time you feel like your blood is boiling?
mhm,
And that was my request. Instead of firing off an email, my request was, can we just talk?
mhm.
Can we get back on the dance floor? And
Yeah, and
so it,
I'm
it
appreciate. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say it would take me 30 minutes to really unpack, everything that went on in between it. But we opened up the dance floor with the question, what needs do you have that aren't being met? And we ended with a request, a small one, insignificant, that we both could easily fulfill.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say. It sounded like a very doable, specific request. I mean, that's where we're going with NVC. That after you are on the dance floor and you kind of hear one another out, like what can we do going forward that will help to meet my needs, help to meet your needs, right? That's what we want, and to pin it down. So you say it was an insignificant, but to me, it was specific. It was doable, right? It was like positive. What it is that we want one another to do rather than what we don't want, because that's kind of vague. So it kind of followed a lot of the criteria of, are you willing to try this out? And yeah, so kudos to you for, because that's not an easy thing. I mean, I think that's probably what you were trying to tell me too in your text to me. Like, that was a moment that could have gone really south. Um, and probably, I'm guessing that you felt pretty proud to be in alignment with the values that you hold so much, which is connection.
Back to the top of this, right? I want to always be the best communicator in the room. I cannot expect other people to even understand this process, right? I'm the leader in the process. There's always a leader. And if you're dancing with somebody, there's always somebody that's leading the steps, and there's always somebody that's following. And to me, I always want to be the leader, and that's my role and responsibility. We have 6,000 people in the organization now. Anytime I pick up my phone, there could be a problem. Anytime there's a problem, I could react negatively. And I'm proud of the discipline to be able to stick to the script, because communication is there's art to it, but it's also a science. It's
Yes.
rooted in psychology.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally a replicable thing. That's what you're saying. There is a script. There's a playbook here that people can follow. And one last thing I do want to mention before we end is this idea of you being the leader, because the more time that I do this with organizations or schools, like, to me, that is the key thing. The person at the top really has to understand this and be dedicated to it. And you can't force it. Like, as you know, you can't force this upon the people underneath you, but it starts with the leader getting it and then modeling it, living it. And then hopefully other people are like, I want some of that. I want to show up like that. Like, you're living it. And that's how you start to integrate it into your organization. But it really, really takes the person at the top having the vision of, this is what I want for all of my people in my organization. So,
Yeah, I always say it's your business or whoever you're responsible for, your team, the people that are working on the project, your church group, whoever it is. At the end of the day, people want to come together, and they want to have a leader that, allows them to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And if that leader's focused on communication, it's, to me, one of the most unsung or unheroic skills out there. Not too many people are focused on their ability to communicate. And so thank you for helping and being a part of Burn in the way that you are, and continuing to teach myself, Victoria, who's our VP of culture, who I know that you meet with on a regular basis, the NVC principles, because it is getting deep into our organization, down to where our franchise partners that are net new, that we just signed last week, are really learning about it and growing with it.
That's great. Well, again, thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy fellow, and I appreciate your time with us. And I'm sure that there are some business people out there in the world listening to this that really gained from hearing from you today. So thank you so much. And we'll see you offline. Hold on.
See you, Dr. B.
You've been listening to It's All About Connection, NVC with Dr. B. For more episodes and guest bios, please visit us at www.thebigbmethod.com. That's www.thebigbmethod.com. And remember, empathy first.